Hi, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sasha. I had a video that I was going to film today, but my family just found out that one of our family members died unexpectedly. So then I was like, okay, I don't really feel like filming. But then I was like, well, I don't really have much to do today. I'd like to do something, maybe take my mind off things. I decided I would film a little get ready with me. We can just talk about this crap hole that has been 2020. I've always used my channel as just a hobby, something I like to do. I've been making videos of sorts since I was like 10 or 11 years old. Like, I've always enjoyed making videos, documenting travels and stuff like that. I'm so happy I have that stuff like documented, because when you travel, like, obviously there's stuff that you always remember, but there's a lot of things that you forget. Yeah, it's nice to have that stuff. But I did decide for 2021, I'm gonna niche down. So we'll see what happens. Over the years, I've just gotten more and more into makeup. But yeah, anyway, 2020. What a freaking... I'm not gonna sit here and say that there haven't been any positives of 2020. I feel like I've grown a lot as a person. There's still good to come out of 2020 for sure, but it's also just been a crappy year, and I feel like so many of us have just had these ups and downs, and more downs than usual. I'm gonna start plucking my eyebrows. You know, the pandemic, the movement, everything that happened with George Floyd, the election, the extreme division. I live in the United States, and I feel like this pandemic has taken its toll on everyone. Personally, I've been working from home since the end of March. I'm not complaining about working from home. There are definitely pros and cons. Like, I really like being able to sleep in a little longer. You know, when I log into work, I don't have to like get up and get ready right away per se. Your girl is not a morning girl. I am a night owl. Like, I can so easily stay up late and sleep in. Even at the ripe age of 26, I feel like I save time on my day from like not having to commute into work. Like, waking up and getting ready and packing your lunch, and in the winter heating up your car. As I get older, I'm becoming more of like a homebody and becoming a little more introverted than I used to be. At the moment, I'm not quite full-time. I am able to take like an extra long lunch, and I usually go for a walk. Even in the winter, I bundle up and I go for my walk and get some fresh air in the middle of the day. It's like life-changing. Then it comes into play that like it's lonely. We still do little Google Meets and stuff like that, so that's nice, but it's not the same as like going into work and seeing people. When we do end up going back to work, it's gonna be a little bit of an adjustment, and just like social life in general. I still like to go and have a good time every now and then. I miss like getting together with my girlfriends and like going out and getting our whole little friend group together. Being carefree for a girls' weekend or whatever we have going on. I don't know when things are gonna get back to normal. Now I'm seeing like in the news that vaccines are like going to waste. Like, it's just one mess after another. You add in the division over masks and vaccines, and it's become this like political thing. In the US, we're at over 350,000 people have died from COVID. The immediate response for a good portion of people about this mass death that we're having, well, they're inflating the numbers. The people that are dying are old and in bad health, and people die from the flu anyway. And I understand we all have different experiences and we all have different perspectives. I know my experience is January 2020, almost a year ago now. My grandma passed away. She had pancreatic cancer. She was diagnosed 2 years before that. When you're diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 2 years is almost unheard of. She had a good battle, but obviously it sucked. She was diagnosed right before she turned 67. You know, she wasn't that old. I just think of like if my grandma were in chemo while COVID was going on, and her like oncologist told us, you know, we're thinking she has about 4 more months. We're thinking she has about 4 more months to live. And then next week she got COVID. You know, a week or two after that, she died from COVID. Those 3 to 4 months that got cut short from her life would have made a huge difference, like, to her loved ones. You know, like, just because someone is older or has health conditions does not mean that they should be written off. Because if you had a loved one and their life was cut short in any way because of COVID, like, that'd be really sad. And it's not even people who are just older with, like, normal people are also dying. Yes, it's not as common, but it happens. Maybe, like, try putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And then you also hear, like, the people say, like, oh, they're inflating the numbers, like, if they die from something else, but they had COVID, like, they mark it out as COVID, whatever they're saying. I don't know, maybe it depends on where you live. I personally honestly know a ton of people who have already had COVID. I haven't had it yet. I know people who have had their family members die from COVID, and it's sad. My brother had COVID in the summer. He was sick, so he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him, you don't have COVID symptoms, you had a really bad sore throat. So they told them, we're gonna test you for strep. Came back negative. So we're like, oh, like he must just have the flu or like a really bad cold in the middle of summer, which is kind of weird. But you know, the doctor told him he didn't have COVID symptoms, so he must not have COVID. He was pretty sick. He like didn't get out of bed for like 5 days. My brother's a 20-year-old healthy boy. You know, he works out. Obviously he didn't get sick enough he had to go to the hospital or anything, but like he was pretty sick. He told us like that wasn't a normal cold. Like we would have never even known he had COVID because the doctor didn't test him for COVID. His roommate went to work. They noticed that his roommate had a stuffy nose. That was the only symptom he had. Their work protocol is if you have any symptoms, you have to go get tested for COVID. So his roommate was kind of like annoyed. I don't have COVID, I have a stuffy nose. Well, his test comes back positive. Turns out he has COVID. My brother calls up my mom and goes, I think I might have had COVID. Brother went and got tested. You can still test positive for COVID after you've had it for like weeks. So he goes and gets tested, and we're like, if it comes back negative, you'll have to get an antibody test so that we can. And we were like, yeah, maybe you had COVID, maybe you didn't, whatever. But my brother actually himself, he was like, well, I want to get tested because I want to know if I had it or not. He did test positive. Like my brother had COVID the entire time, and the doctor tested him for strep, and we would have never known unless his roommate would have got tested from work because his roommate like barely had any symptoms. I had another friend that thought she had COVID. They looked at her symptoms and they denied her a COVID test. Granted, that's just my experience of the people I know. And then you take into account all the asymptomatic people. The COVID numbers, in my opinion, are probably higher than the number that we're at right now. You hear the number, over 350,000 Americans have died from COVID. As a country, we're just like numb to it. But it's like those are 300,000 people's family and friends who have now lost a loved one because of COVID. And it's just really sad. We are desensitized from mass death. I'm gonna put more lotion on. In the winter, I like to use banana cream. 2020 has really been a doozy, if you ask me. By the way, do you like my sweater? My mom got this for me as a Christmas gift a couple years ago. How should I fix my hair today is the real question. Oh, should I do like space buns today? That might be kind of fun. I'll probably straighten these pieces later. I'm gonna do my foundation first. I'm gonna mix Tarte Amazonian clay with my Wet n Wild. I really like how these two mix together. Should we talk about George Floyd and the movement? It sucks. People are divided, and it's not good that George Floyd died. That is terrible. Absolutely horrible. But I think that happening in the middle of a pandemic really brought to light the deep issues that the United States has. Very complex issues. Racism, the prison industrial complex, mass incarceration. I have no tolerance for racism. People really need to do better. I grew up in a tiny town, predominantly white. Like, some people don't even believe that white privilege is real. It's really sad. I think when you grow up in a small town, especially if it's predominantly white, you're not exposed to diversity. You don't learn about diversity. It leads to people believing that there are no issues. My sister has her bachelor's degree in criminal justice, so she is very educated on the subject of mass incarceration. A really good documentary to watch is 13th on Netflix. I think everyone should watch that. And it's one of those documentaries that you can watch multiple times because there's so much information packed into it. Our criminal justice system fails Black and brown people. The more you learn about it, the more you will see how obvious that is. I saw this one TikTok Black woman, and she was talking about the generational trauma that comes from slavery, which, yes, Black people are still today affected by slavery. We could also go into the whole issue of generational wealth, and some guy commented, if you're still letting things bother you from slavery, that's your own problem. You can't still let things like that bother you. It's just like, us white people will never understand what it's like to be Black or brown. I'm gonna start doing my eye makeup. I got a new crease brush for Christmas from my mom, so shout out to Mumsy. The Scott Barnes crease brush, number 62. Back in the day when I used to watch a lot of Tati Westbrook, she used to have Scott Barnes on her channel. When it comes to eye makeup, like how I spend my money in relation to makeup, I like never really spend money on eye stuff. I spend all my money on foundation, loose powders, blotting sheets, setting powders, concealers. And then when it comes to like eye products, I just use whatever. Actually, while we're here, let me take you on a little tour of my eyeshadow collection. Naked 2 palette, hand-me-down from my mother. L'Oreal LA palette, Nude 2, that I got in my stocking like my freshman or sophomore year of college. Nudes palette that I think was my sister's, and I found it at my parents' house, so I took it. It's literally not even a brand. It's just called Glam and Beauty. Smoky Eye palette from Wet n Wild. I always used this for my like prom makeup in high school, and I still use it occasionally. These old palettes, this was mine in high school and I think this was my sister's. Found these at my parents'. I do use them a little, but they're kind of more for like nostalgic purposes. Other than that, I just have random single eyeshadows. You know, honestly, with my eyeshadows I have, I'm perfectly fine. Consistently used just like a brown and neutral looks. This nudes palette, probably from the dollar store, full of talc, but you know, I still use it, whatever. It's the most boring palette you'll ever see. I reach for this palette all the time. These 2 shades that I really like as transition shades, darker browns and a black, so I can like always deepen up my outer V. These lighter shades, which I don't care for on my lid. They don't pack enough punch, but I really like them as highlights on my face. It's so practical for me. If you gave me the choice between a $30 eyeshadow palette, it was a super nice palette, tons of colors, and it was $30, and you said these are gonna be the best eyeshadows that you will ever use. This is all you will need. And then you gave me a $95 foundation. This is gonna be the best foundation you will ever use. I would honestly buy the foundation. I know that I will use it, every last drop of it. I never buy eyeshadow palettes. I'm not gonna be able to use it. Like, it'd be nice to have. Like, don't get me wrong, I still like eyeshadow. You know, over the years, I've just gotten more and more into makeup. I'm sure I will start to venture out. Now, if I get like a palette as a gift or something, like, I'll use it. When it comes to spending my own money, I'm a foundation girl. I will splurge on foundation. I know I just went on this whole rant about how I'm like not into colors, but today I'm gonna try to do like a little blue moment on the eyes. I'm gonna use a super old eyeshadow and this blue. You know, I like to try to be a thrift queen. I don't buy sauces. Like, I don't buy ketchup, mustard, barbecue sauce. When I go through a drive-through, they'll give you ketchup packets or like mustard packets, whatever sauce you want. If I don't use it all, instead of throwing it in the garbage, I keep the sauce and I put it in my fridge and I will use them. That's how crazy I am. But when it comes to foundation, I have no problem dropping an easy 30 bucks on foundation. 20 to 30 bucks, I'll spend that on a foundation, no problem. I don't know, foundation for me is just worth the splurge. Also, I really like powder foundation, and I'm actually gonna make a video about how to properly use powder foundation. I feel like people are sleeping on powder foundation. There's pros and cons, liquid foundation and powder foundation, and I like to use them for different things. You know, I appreciate a good powder foundation, and I think like Fenty coming out with their new powder foundation, kind of like putting powder foundation back on the map. Like, I watched Jackie Ina's review. I've watched a couple reviews, especially like if you have oily skin, powder foundation, just like knowing how to use it and having it as a trick up your sleeve could be really useful. I feel like we all have those things that we like to splurge on, and for us it's worth it. I'm gonna take like a flatter brush and use that same darker brown a little bit on my lower lash line. I'm gonna open up my favorite little nude palette. I'm gonna take one of the really dark browns, darken up a little bit. I'm gonna take my new crease brush and do a little blenderoo. I'm actually gonna pick up a tiny bit more of that blue. I don't want to lose any of that. Blend, blend, blend. Then I'm gonna take this highlight, take that on my finger on my lid. Let's bronze now. I have this huge Bare Minerals bronzer that my mom gave to me because she doesn't use, and it's too dark for me in the winter. I'm using it anyway. This is my like good contour, but I don't have very much left, so I'm saving it for someday when I can go out into the public and be normal. Same brush. Gonna go in with some blush. Now let's... Okay, I got a phone call, so did my brows, did a little eyeliner, working on my mascara now. A layer of setting spray, the LA Girl Pro Setting Spray. I'm actually going to have a dedicated video reviewing this setting spray. I have some thoughts. I'm going to put a little Aquaphor in my lips and do a little curlaroo. Let's do some lip gloss. And I'm just going to kind of layer it right on top of my Aquaphor so it just kind of mixes together. Put some of that on. I guess this is the finished look. I think it turned out kind of fun. I guess that was it for this video. If for some reason you watched this video and made it this far, thanks for listening to me rant. For all of us, I really hope that 2021 is better. I hope that all my family and friends and anybody who watches this live a happy and healthy life in 2021. Alright, I think that's all I have to say. Again, thanks for listening if you made it this far, and I will see you in my next video. Peace out, bye.